Wait, just a minute. I'm just linking again. Wait, just a minute. Yes, in the we are discussing that in the case of works contract, they have to maintain works contract wise records, and they have to maintain the name, address of the person, that is the contractee, on behalf of who he is put in the works contract. Number one. Number two, they have to maintain the records of description, value, and quantity of goods or services pertaining to a particular works contract. Then there is another point for the goods or services utilized in the execution of works contract also to be maintained. The payment received in respect of each works contract should also be maintained, and the number, name, and addresses of the supplier from whom he has received the goods for that particular works contract also have to be maintained. So, and mind that the work services of works contract may be for a period more than 90 days. In such a case, it may qualify for a continuous supply of service. So, in the case of continuous supply of service, we have to refer the contracts between the contractor and contractee. Accordingly, the time of supply shall be determined, and the milestone we must keep in mind for in issuance of invoice, etc. And if you are issuing invoice, then these records will be very important. To what extent, what should be the amount mentioned on the invoice, to what extent the materials or services used in that for this purpose, for execution of works contract, how much quantity of goods or services received for execution of works contract, for whom we are executing the works contract, and to what extent payment has been received in respect of that particular works contract. So if I believe in such a case, works contract become a cost center in this case, and for that particular cost centers, we have to maintain the quantity details of goods, services, amount also, and the payment received also we have to maintain for that particular cost centers pertaining to the works contract. It is just rule 56 14. I'm just close. Now, records to be maintained by owner or operator of godown or warehouse operator. So transporter or warehouse operator also have to maintain, and mind that this to be maintained whether he is registered in GST or not registered in GST. They have to maintain these records for whom they are maintaining these stocks in the godown. So every owner or operator of warehouse or godown must maintain, may be registered, may not be registered, maintain the record of consignor, consignee, or other relevant details of such goods. So he has to maintain on whose behalf he is receiving goods, where the goods will be out. So consignor, the consignee details and other details, and they have to facilitate to verify those records customer wise, the consignor wise, consignee wise, or item wise as well. So these records must be properly maintained, and any person having custody over the goods in the capacity as a carrier or clearing forwarding agent for delivery or dispatch thereof to a recipient on behalf of any registered person shall have to maintain true and correct records in respect of goods handled. So clearing forwarding agent also have to maintain to what extent goods has been handled by him, and the name of person or registered person whose goods he has handled for. So for every handling, he has to maintain record. Say X Limited company has invoice number so dated so, we have handled those goods. So in such a case, the department may ask to cross-examine your supply versus the details maintained by clearing forwarding receipt, or this may be asked from the transporter as well. So the transporter, warehouse keeper, and clearing forwarding agent, all these three also have to maintain these records, and these records could be asked for. And mind that the transporter, warehouse keeper, and the clearing forwarding agent are required to maintain such records even though they are not registered in GST. So GST law is applicable not only the person who is registered under GST or who has a liability to pay tax under GST, but this law is applicable on the person who is not registered in GST as well for any reason, due to threshold limit, supplies less than threshold limit, or they are covered in the reverse charge. So whatever reason may be, but even though they are not registered, they have to maintain these records of the consignor, consignee, movement of goods, the goods handled, the quantity, details, etc. etc. Records to be maintained, we have just discussed, so I'm not repeating. So we have just discussed all this. Record by go down operator, yes, go down operator have to maintain, and they have to facilitate for physical verification or inspection by the proper officer. So even though the go down operator or the warehouse keeper are registered or not, it is not relevant. They have to facilitate the inspection of books of accounts, inspection of physical verifications, inspection of so many things to the proper officer of GST. And it is also the onus on the go down operator that to maintain goods in such a manner they can be identified item wise, so many items. If a warehouse keeper or go down keeper has 10 tons of some stock, then another stock he has 5 tons, then another item of stock he has 3 tons, or so many like that. So in such a case also, item wise and owner wise, they have to facilitate, and all the entries of movement, receipts, disposal, dispatch, etc. must be there by the go down operator, and the period as well. So owner or operator of a warehouse or go down shall maintain this account with respect to the period for which goods remain in warehouse. So to what extent, for what period these goods are, that also may be maintained by the go down operator. That is the onus cast on the go down operator or warehouse keeper, even though they are registered, not registered in GST. Retention of records, as we have discussed, that section 36 has a provision that the books of accounts, etc., to be maintained, to be kept for a period of 72 months from the due date of filing of annual return. So if the annual return date filing increases, then the retention period also simultaneously increases. And there may be situations where, yes, one thing left out we have to discuss, then we will finally close. Records by custodian of goods. So we have mentioned that section 15, rule 56, sub-rule 17 has a provision that any person having custody over the goods, whether as a carrier or clear foreign agent, have to maintain true and correct accounts of goods handled by him, not a new one. Retention we have just discussed. So normally the retention period is 72 months from the end of due date of the annual return, and in the case of appeal, etc., cases where there is litigations going on, then from the final closure or final disposal of appeal, whether means there is no appeal at all, either from the department side or the taxpayer side. So if the final judgment is passed by High Court, or final judgment by Supreme Court, or final judgment by the tribunal, or final judgment by any authority where that is the final order, and against that no appeal before any appellate forum, then from the order within 1 year we have to maintain those records. So generally 72 months from the date of annual return, whereas in the case of litigations for 1 year from the final order of the disputes. Now, retention of electronic record is same as the manual record. So, in the case of, there may be problems because you cannot shift from one company of software to another company, because in such a case also you have to maintain record for 72 months from the due date of annual return. And if you are switching over from one software to another, then in such a case there will be a problem if department asks for to provide you all the digital records, etc. So this is a problem as well. Now, the failure of maintaining accounts, if you are not maintaining or keeping account, then in such a case, the officers may go for section 73, 74 demand recovery provisions as well. So the proper, in such a case, if you are not maintaining books of accounts, or we are not keeping books of accounts, or we are not updating those accounts, or we are not providing those accounts to the officers for any inspection, etc., then in such a case, the proper officer shall be fully empowered to determine the tax under provision of section 73, 74, and we know he will do the best of judgment. Okay. So we have just discussed 74, nothing new. Production of books under other law can also be demanded. So Rule 56 has a specific provision that every registered person shall on demand produce the books of accounts to the officer, which is maintained under any other law as well. So if some other law required to maintain some documents, that documents can also be demanded by, this is not demanded by the officer. This is for tea, coffee, rubber, etc., not much for all of us. Now the penalty, taxable person who commits any of the offences, and those offences in section 122 has the failure to keep maintain. If we don't have the outward register of supply, or we don't maintaining, so making entry on regular interval on those registers, or we have kept those books account, or we have maintained those account, but we do not retain those books of account for 72 months, etc., and at the time of inspection or inquiry we have not produced those books of account, then for every fault department will penalize you. The penalty, minimum penalty is 10,000, and failure to issue invoice in accordance with provision, etc., there is general penalty, which is 25,000, etc. Just we have discussed. Thank you. Now the question answer sessions we have. Now I am opening all of you for question answer sessions. Yes, please. Any questions you have? Questions?
सर एक तो ये जानना चाहता हूँ, जैसे आप स्टोर जो भी आईटी स्कूटनी वगैरह होता है, कभी भी
unmute all of you. Any questions you have?
सर ललित कुमार, हेलो 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 हेलो,
questions? Any questions?
ललित कुमार बोल रहा हूँ. हाँ सर ललित कुमार. हेलो 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 हेलो.
Any questions?
हेलो हेलो.
Any question? Any question? Question. प्रकाश जी बोल रहे हैं. हाँ, कौन क्वेश्चन जी?
हमसे पहले ललित कुमार जी बोल रहे हैं, उनकी वॉइस आपके पास नहीं आ पा रही है.
अच्छा, ललित कुमार जी की भी आवाज आ रही है. आप एक एक करके बताएं किन की क्वेश्चन सबसे
पहले आप ललित कुमार जी को ले लीजिए, फिर मैं अभी लास्ट में बात कर लूंगा आपसे.
अच्छा, पहले ललित जी को ले लूं. ठीक है, ले लिया. ललित जी को ले लिया.